Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this February 26th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. My show is on every evening at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Pacific time, as well as 11 a.m. Pacific time. If you can't listen to either of those shows, go to my website at arcticbeacon.com. Now, if you've been listening to my show, I concentrate a lot on the Tony Alamo ministry and how they've been attacked by the Vatican-led New World Order for their views, showing that we have no freedom of religion or speech in this country. Now, I'm going to go back in time again on this Friday, February 26, 2016, back 10 years ago, to an interview I did with an FBI agent that, without a doubt, proves that the government has infiltrated that ministry and was using this one man to do it and others. Now, he also is going to talk about other issues like Waco, Oklahoma City, and a number of other things. So I thought it'd be good to go back to 2006 and listen to this gentleman, as well as reflect on why it's gotten worse in these 10 years, and why no one ever deals with these subjects. If you listen to the presidential debates, you'd think I'd live on a different planet. But anyway, let's listen to John Peeler back in 2006.
Good evening, and my guest tonight, the Investigative Journal, is John Peeler. He's a former FBI agent who blew the whistle on our government illegal activity in many, many different cases, Oklahoma City, Waco, 9/11, other scandals, and I think John's testimony tonight is going to be enlightening. If you ever wondered whether our government sponsors terrorism, I think John Peeler's testimony will show you that they do. And before I get to John, on my website, www.arcticbeacon.com, I'm running a three-part series that starts today called The Strange Case of Dr. Francesco Pazienza. And if you ever wondered if our government sponsors terrorism abroad, the story of Dr. Francesco Pazienza will definitely enlighten you. Now, Dr. Pazienza is unable to talk because he's in solitary confinement in a Livorno, Italy prison. He's been there for the better part of 20 years. He's unable to talk. He's under maximum security. The only way that you can get to him is through communication letters that are basically screened, and the only people that he's allowed to talk to is his immediate family. But the story about Dr. Pazienza is similar to my guest tonight, John Peeler. Talks about how he in Italy worked for Michael Ledeen and other GOP members that are some of them still in Washington today, and how he was involved in fomenting terrorism, working with terrorist groups in Italy to basically do the same thing over there that they are doing here. And I'm talking about the 1980 Bologna bombing and the train station and other things. Later on in the week, I'm going to have on Marco Saba. He's from the Observatory of Organized Crime in Geneva, Switzerland, who's been researching this case. And he's going to tell you how the tentacles of the Pazienza case are widespread and how they can basically go right into the White House, showing that our government sponsors terrorism overseas. With that, let me get to John Peeler. Like I said, his story shows how our government sponsors terrorism here. And once he decided to blow the whistle, do what was right, so to speak, boy, the government came down hard. And they came down hard on his son. He says that his son was framed for a murder he didn't commit and is now serving a life sentence. John, how are you this evening in light of what I just said? I know you're not feeling well, but how are you?
I'm able to, sit up and take nourishment, and I'm fighting gravity on a regular basis, and I thank God I can talk to you and your listeners, because the deal is, the truth is out there, and the people need to know it, and I'm telling it because any day now I might not be able to tell it.
Well, John, why don't we start out then and tell us this story. First of all, why don't we start by saying that you were, of course, an FBI agent working on the side of the New World Order. And tell us some of the things that you learned and how you decided to finally flip and basically do what was right and blow the whistle.
It started years ago, And the deal is I don't have immunity from prosecution, so I'm going to try to, Greg, I'm going to try to tell you as much as I can, man. But jails are not fun places. I go and visit my son on a regular basis, and like you said, he was an Eagle Scout, Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. He's doing life in prison without parole. There's no body, no weapon, no blood, no hair, no forensic evidence, no eyewitness, just 4 people that say that he said that he committed a murder. Okay? His name
sounds like pretty flimsy evidence to me.
Oh, yes, sir, but I'm saying, Greg, they could do it to you. They could do it to anyone else in America. It set a precedent. Okay, his name is John Chris Peeler. He's now number 107832, East Arkansas Regional Unit, Post Office Box 180, Brickey, Arkansas, 72320. If anybody wants to look it up, check me out. But
before you get into the story, let me mention I'm working on another story that's on my website, a 3-part series about the strange case of Dr. Francesco Pazienza. Now, here's a man, and I'll tell you, like you said, they can do it to you. They did it to him. This is through Michael Ledeen, who worked with Pazienza overseas, and Carl Rove and the rest of them. Ledeen is in jail now for 20 years and basically illegally extradited and just framed to the hilt, and he's sitting in a jail right now. So they can, like you said, put you away if they want to.
Oh, yes, sir. You're totally correct. And the most of the people that listen to your show, I've noticed, are not sheep getting ready to shear or going to slaughter and so forth. There's people that speak their mind, as they did on the talk show the other day that I was on with you. But I'm saying the deal is the American people need to know it. And this is not a joke. I work for an agency that does not exist. I was with the Violence Crime. This is before the Patriot Act now passed. And the things I did, a lot of them are against the law, and they're still against the law, even under the Patriot Act. But I was with the Violent Crime Task Force. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I mean, I tell you what, I don't think so until you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago to me.
Okay, but anyway, I'm saying what they do, they assign, you're an agent, okay? The Central Intelligence Agency had agents. I've done stuff all over the world and stuff with different agencies and so forth, contract basis, working with different agencies and so forth all my life. But the deal is it was against the law before the Patriot Act to work in the continental United States. So what they do, you're not an agent. They call you a special agent, and they assign you to the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the DEA, or whatever. Believe it or not, in America, the squeakiest clean agency I worked for was the DEA. And they told me I didn't have to frame or set anybody up because there's so many people doing drugs in Arkansas and southern Missouri that they train their agents here before they send them to third world countries and so forth. I mean, it's a messed up situation, but that's the way it is. But anyway,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was going to say, when you work for the DA, the problem is our government at the highest levels is selling these drugs.
Oh, well, you're exactly. In fact, Roger Bush Cassidy Clinton. Okay, I worked on that case, and I really liked the guy. He even gave me a book called The Meaning of True Friendship after I saved his life a couple of times. But he got busted for a whole airplane full of cocaine that was 98% pure. If you or any of your friends got busted for that, you could look at spending the rest of your life in some bad prison somewhere with very few rights, and they'd put you in a smaller cell every time you wanted some rights. They'd put you in a smaller box. But the deal is, what I did, my real name is John Peeler, old British slang for a policeman, modern British and Australian slang for undercover policeman, but that's my real family name. I have a history that goes back to Sir Robert Peel, the founder of the British Constabulary Police Department. My people were policemen because that's a low-paying job and easy to get, and still is in a lot of areas. But, I was looking at some of my notes today. In April the 19th, 1985, the Covenant of the Sword and Arm of the Lord was busted for planning to blow up the Oklahoma Federal Building in 1985, okay? And, they were busted, and the deal is they had planned to do it. And before that, there was a book called The Turner Diaries. Have you ever read that book?
No, I didn't.
I think it's by William Pierce. One of the reasons I read it, when I went undercover in these different agents, different organizations and so forth, I've done it against blacks and Orientals and whites and all different kind of people. I don't discriminate now. But anyway, most of the deals I did were totally kosher. The last few deals I did were just off the wall bizarre. And what they did, they had me going against American. I was a FOB at one time, friend of Bill, and they had me going Arkansas that has its own website, and alamoministries.com. But they went against this guy, and they told these are American officials telling me, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, if I can't blame this guy, I need to terminate him with extreme prejudice. And I kept trying to find something that this guy was doing wrong. I couldn't find anything he was doing wrong. And now I'm no longer with the government. And so
listen, John, can you hold that?
Sure,
yes, sir. Take a break, and we'll be back and continue your story right after this break. John, what I'm really tired of is the constant political double talk in this country and how the American people in general just buy it. I've made it a point to find as many people like you as I can here and overseas to make a point. And the point is, for example, like your story, when people die in Waco, when people die in Oklahoma City, when people die in 9/11, when people died in 1980 in the Bologna train station bombing and other terrorist attacks that can be pinpointed to involvement with our government, not the enemy at Waco, not the enemy at 9/11, but our government sponsoring this, then all the political talk means nothing. We need to root out these people and the evil that they're doing. And your stories are important because you reached a point in your life when you were carrying out some of these evil orders, when you realized you couldn't do it anymore. And I guess I applaud you for that, but I really want to know and tell the American people, what are some of the things you learned that you're blowing the whistle about that really just nab our government for sponsoring and being involved in the actual killing of its own people?
Okay, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Greg, I was investigated by the FBI. They had me go to their new secure location in Little Rock off of Shackleford, and they went from having nearly no security in Finance Center 1 and 2 to having, you got to get an engraved invitation to get in the parking lot. But once I was there, I wasn't there on a volunteer basis. If I didn't go there, I'd be in jail or beaten up or dead right now. But anyway, I volunteered and went there after they made me no choice, and I took 3 polygraph tests. I'm willing to take a polygraph test anywhere, anytime if someone wants to pay for it. But they gave me 3 polygraph tests. Most of them were very young FBI agents. A couple of them have been around the block. Bill Beersdorf had been around the block and overseas and everywhere else. But he's one of the fix-it guys like I was. But anyway, the deal is they asked me these questions. Well, they said 3 weeks before Oklahoma, you wrote letters to the president, letters to Governor Keating of Oklahoma, letters to different people, and told them to please stop the Oklahoma bombing. It was going to happen at 9:02 a.m. April the 19th. And they said, why did you? And then 3 months before the World Trade Center, you wrote letters to Mayor Giuliani, the President of the United States, all these intelligence agencies, and told them to please stop the attack on the World Trade Center. They said, why did you do 3 months before the World Trade Center? I said, well, apparently the first time I didn't think I gave you enough warning and enough time, and I figured the second time maybe you'd really do something about it. But, you know, it's very unfortunate. The last deal I did with the United States government 2 years ago, there were some Muslim terrorists, Iman Jamil al-Amin al-Faraz here in Little Rock, Arkansas, that was planning on 2 years ago now, flying an airplane, him and his followers flying an airplane into the Arkansas state capitol during a business day when it was open and doing business, and he was going to fly this airplane in there. I found out about it. I went and reported it to the people I used to work with the FBI. And they said, oh, yeah, they're going to get onto it. They're going to do something about it. And then I got to thinking, they're not going to do anything about it, just like they didn't do anything about these other things that I reported in my reports to them. So I went and talked to an old guy that I'd worked with years ago, Darrell S. Hedden, the guy that stopped the attack on the Arkansas State Capitol when on April the 19th, 1995, when it was supposed to happen. I went and talked to Darrell Hedden. He's the head state trooper in charge of Capitol Security. I went and talked to him and said, look, this Iman in Little Rock is planning on flying this airplane to the Arkansas State Capitol. He said, John, are you still working undercover for the government or anything? I said, no. He said, well, I can't take you with me. So he went and got one of his other state troopers. They got a couple of sawed-off shotguns and armed themselves up. They went to the Iman's Mosque in downtown Little Rock and arrested him. And on the way down to the county jail, charges against that too, plus the fact that he was on probation for weapons violations, and allegedly, and I found out later, allegedly he was an informant on the payroll of the FBI, and this guy was going to go through with the thing, and the reason he wanted to do it, the Arkansas State Capitol is the three-quarter version of the national Capitol. Okay, Darrell Hedden took the guy down to Pulaski County Jail, had him locked up. Then the feds come and say, well, he's on federal probation, we got to take custody. Now the guy is gone. No one knows where he's at, but according to the jail records, he's in no jail in the United States. So no one knows where he's at or what he's doing or how he's doing or what name he's going by.
They got rid of him.
Well, I know, but I'm saying I don't think he's dead. Just like my friend Tim McVeigh, I don't think he's dead because I didn't see the footage. I wasn't there when they allegedly executed him. He was a friend of mine. He's still a friend of mine. When I first met Tim McVeigh at gun show, one of the main, you asked me about the problems I run into, one of the main problems I run into undercover when I infiltrate these radical organizations and the people that are talking the most hate and using the N-word and talking the most hate and talking Ray Hole, racial and holy war and all this are the other federal undercovers. And see, they don't tell me who the other federal undercovers are. When I met Tim McVeigh, I thought he was a federal undercover. He thought I was a federal undercover. And we had to talk for a while, and I finally convinced him that I was just an old Trekkie and a burnout veteran and stuff, and he was the same way. So we got to talking, and then I showed him my KKK ID. He showed me his KKK ID. I was able to join that organization undercover for the government. I'm not a racist or nothing. I joined undercover for the government 9:02 a.m., April the 19th, 1990. And the number I chose was 009500 is the number that I chose. And I was undercover, he was undercover, but he didn't tell me he was undercover. I didn't tell him I was undercover.
What else do you know about McVeigh?
Oh, okay, McVeigh, he was a really pleasant fellow, kind of a geek, but he was an Orthodox Catholic. And I told him one time, look, quit telling people that you're a Catholic. You're not supposed to be a Catholic if you're a member of the Klan. But he didn't know that, obviously, because he wasn't well-versed. But anyway, he came back as a hero of Desert Storm 1. He wanted to be an Army Ranger. They sent him to Ranger training. They gave him a brand-new pair of boots. He dropped out. They used Operation MK Ultra. Well, the first guy we were going to use for the patsy for the Oklahoma bombing was a guy named Mike Ash, a gun dealer from Arkansas. But Mike Ash lived between North Little Rock and Conway, Arkansas, in a little area called Mayflower. I run into his mother not too long ago, and she wasn't real happy to see me. But anyway, Mike Ash, she realized that they had him for the patsy. He was supposed to be the patsy for the Oklahoma bombing, but he was way too smart, so it did not work out. When he was playing, and they ended up finally reneging the deal on him and putting him in Oklahoma federal prison for a while. I think he's out now. But anyway, he was a real pleasant fellow, but he was just too smart. Now, Tim McVeigh, when he got undercover for the government, he started doing crystal methamphetamine, which will really mess up your mind, trying to convince him that he was really one of the redneck boys, you know what I'm saying, when he was hanging around at Elohim City and all these other places that he went to. But he was trying to convince him that he was really the good old boy, and he was passing at gun shows. He passed out Ron Horiuchi's thing, the FBI sharpshooter that did the deal on the Weaver family, shot the wife of Mr. Weaver. Thank God I wasn't involved in that deal. I was involved in enough bad deals.
John, yes. Let's take a break, and I want to pick up right here where you left off. We'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal. I really, really hope everybody in the listening audience tonight, anybody in listening range, is paying attention carefully to what John Peeler, former FBI agent, just said. John said he worked undercover as an agent, infiltrated the KKK, and met Timothy McVeigh, who was also on the government payroll as an agent, who had infiltrated the KKK. And basically, Timothy McVeigh was set up as the patsy by our government to blow up Oklahoma City. Now, this should be enough. Now, first of all, there's two things here. You can either believe John Peeler, or you can believe the government liars that are in Washington today, who have lied countless times on many, many things. Now, this story alone, should be enough in your mind If you take the facts and look at what John's saying, John Peeler has no reason to do this. I mean, he has nothing to benefit. Who has to benefit in this story? The government. So you look to that. You look to the track record of who's talking. John Peeler decided to do the right thing. Now, people, listen. We don't need to stack up 9/11, and John's going to tell you about David Koresh and other scandals. Let's concentrate on this. Hundreds of people died in Oklahoma City at the hands of our government, according to John Peeler. Now, John, trace a little bit more Timothy McVeigh for us.
Okay, Tim McVeigh, I really like the guy. One thing, like I said, he was a Trekkie like I was when I was younger. He's kind of a geek, but so was I when I was younger. But anyway, he had been through his government, he went down to Waco, and he was one of the protesters down at Waco that was protesting the government siege. Now, Bill Buford and Glenn Jordan were two of the federal agents that went down there that I did a whole lot of work with. And while Bill Buford, before he went down there, I told him, just because they say they're a church group, be sure to watch your rear. Guess where he got shot at? But the reason he got shot, there were 4 men. Well, I volunteered, Vernon Wayne Howe. They told me what an evil guy he was and so forth. I volunteered to go down there, and I'm a very good shot. I volunteered to go down there personally and shoot him. But the deal is, I was working on a case of a guy named Tom Peterson, who was with the Nazi Party and the Concerned Citizens of the Constitution and all kind of other supremacy groups and Aryan Nation and all kind of stuff. So they told me it was very important to guard Bill Clinton, William Jefferson Bly is his real name. They told me it was very important to guard him and make sure nothing happened to him. So I was not allowed to go to the Waco siege, thank God, because Bill Buford, after he came back and got over his wounds, the rest of his career he had to go around and tell the agents for the FBI, ATF, DEA how not to conduct a raid.
Okay, I'm going to break it off there because we're going to take a break here in 2016. Hope you're enjoying this interview I did back in 2006. And I'll show you one thing. All this stuff we got out in the air, no one ever picked up on it. And of course you know why, because the mainstream media has a blackout on the truth. And they don't want to hear any of these kind of things or even entertain the possibility that what John is saying is true. And it is a job of the newspapers and the press to present all sides of the story. But when you really understand what's going on the inside, I do because I worked there. I worked on the inside. You become first sick to your stomach, and then basically people ask, why aren't you a newspaper reporter anymore? And I said, if I could be, if I want to lie. But how can you be after you find out these things? And I always said that the idea that changed me was having to live in Rome for 7 years and see what this organization, the Vatican, was all about and how terrorism was being sponsored there. I was almost killed because of one of their terrorist acts. And that's how I got really close to the bottom of it, because I wanted to find out how could they place that bomb in the newspaper that I worked in. Crazy. But that's really how it happened. And so I've never stopped doing it. But unfortunately, as the years pass on, this country becomes more and more propagated with lies. It doesn't change. It never has been worse, in my estimation, than it is today. And hopefully, by replaying a story like this, we'll show you that 10 years can pass, and it actually is worse now than then. Now you got so much more on the internet that you don't know where to go. But anyway, we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal More with John Peeler.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Okay, welcome back to the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this February 26, 2016 day on our calendar. We're going back in time to, December, I believe, of March of 2006, with an interview I did with an FBI informant, John Peeler.
It went very badly, but part of the way, the two four-man teams that you see on the TV that went up the ladder, the one on the right-hand side, 3 agents went up in the room that was supposed to be an arms and ammunition room, which it was a child's bedroom. But 3 agents went inside, and the other agent stood outside, used his HK submachine gun, 9mm MP3 submachine. He used his HK-91 to fire a full magazine of ammunition into the room after they went into the room, his 3 fellow agents. And then he threw a smoke grenade and a hand grenade into the room. The reason he did that, I won't use their names, I don't want to defame their character, but those 3 Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms agents had been undercover agents that volunteered and worked undercover for the Secret Service, protecting William Jefferson Bligh, also known as William Jefferson Clinton. As a going-away present, the Secret Service agent, Terry Edwards, tried to frame me for murdering Kathy Ferguson. If you get a hold of the Clinton Chronicles, Danny Ferguson was talking about Troopergate. He was the state trooper that guarded Clinton when he was governor of Arkansas. And he was just an interesting fellow. But anyway, Kathy Ferguson was getting a divorce ring because she couldn't handle all this stuff. And she was getting ready to be engaged to a guy who was a Sherwood police officer. But anyway, if you read the Clinton Chronicles, she was a beauty contest winner, went to a charismatic church every time the doors was open, was repenting for the things she had been involved in with Danny Ferguson, for the affair she had had with Bill Clinton, and she was right-handed. She had allegedly shot herself in the back, left-hand side of the head. She didn't do it. Terry Edwards had me to go down to the Stevens Building, Secret Service office downtown Little Rock. I didn't have a choice to go down there because I've had before. They tried to allege that I murdered her, but I did not murder her. And they tried to frame me for murdering Kathy Ferguson, who was a good... But anyway, the thing gets thick. You know what I'm saying? When, there's no honor among thieves and the jackbooted thugs, which I was at the top of the heap. I repent now. I pray every time I get a chance. I might, after this show, an airplane might fall on top of my home. You never know what's going to happen, man. Accidents happen. Like years ago.
This story about, I want to just get back to McVeigh.
Okay, sure.
Finish up with this in the next few minutes.
Okay.
About how you're sure that he was set up as a patsy and how you feel that he's still alive today.
Okay. Well, Terry Lynn Nichols was more involved than he was because Terry Lynn Nichols took the dollar bills to the Philippines. They bleached them out, made them into $100 bills, brought them back. He brought back a Filipino wife, which was a no-no among the white supremacists, too, just to prove that he had a reason to go down there. But he was meeting with them, planting bombs. When I was with McVeigh, I talked to him a little bit about bombs. He didn't know the first thing. He knew a whole lot about firearms. He knew basically nothing about bombs, ammonium nitrate fertilizer, and improvised munitions and so forth. He liked store-bought stuff. He didn't know anything about bombs. And he had to get a lot of help build the bomb because it took a lot of manpower and so forth. He wanted me to go and help him mix the stuff, but I didn't have permission to do it. But the deal is, it was an explosive train. The explosion, he used his favorite flag that he had on his brain. I'm sorry, what?
Other agents that you knew did have permission to help him, correct?
That's correct. Well, I was working with other agents and agencies and so forth, right? I mean, like I said, undercover, the people that some of these Klan meetings and some of these Aryan Nation meetings that I run into, the ones that talk the loudest and want to do the most damage and burn down churches and all this are other federal agents that are undercover. And I realize that some of them are federal agents undercover because I'm not an idiot, But anyway, Tim Tuttle, he had to use a Yellow Rider truck to represent the yellow Gadsden flag, the flag of the American Revolution. He had to do it at 9:02 a.m., April the 19th. Patriots Day, 1775, the first shot, the first battle of the American Revolution. But also, they went into Waco, the armored vehicle, against the United States law, by the way, the Posse Comitatus Act. They went into Waco and crushed the stairway over the tunnel and gassed and burnt the people up that were down in the tunnel under the edge of the water tower. But they did that on April the 19th. And the reason they did it on April the 19th, 1993, was not an accident. There was a Republic of Texas and Patriot groups, and probably some of your listeners, that were planning on coming in there and trying to stop the siege at all costs. And they couldn't have that to happen, so they had to do it. And Richard Wayne Snell, the guy that I told you earlier with the covenant sword arm of the Lord, the last request he had on his life was he wanted to watch the Oklahoma bombing on the day of his execution. He was executed on the evening of April the 19th, 1995, after he watched the Oklahoma bombing on television here in Arkansas. And that was not an accident.
We're going to take a break, come back, talk more about the Oklahoma City bombing with John Peeler, former FBI agent who was blowing the whistle on his illegal government activity. Back in 3 minutes.
This is GCN, the Genesis Communications Radio Network.
Tell you that your story just turns the world upside down. And the world I'm talking about is the world that the people live in on ABC News and CBS News and everybody else who listens to that, because we are listening to them, and I will just paraphrase today. 4 years into the Iraqi war, we're fighting this enemy of Islam. Terrorism is on the rise. And my goodness, when you tell your story, it just flips it all around, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Thank God that I can listen to the truth. But thank God that there's a station like this who can actually deal with these issues, because they're not easy, but you must deal with what actually is happening. Now, what they're doing on the ABC News is fiction. It is creating an enemy that was created by these evil elite that are running the country. Your story shows exactly what they do. They basically create an enemy. They create the terrorist act. They blame it on somebody else. And then they tell you we're fighting terrorism. My goodness, your story just turns their world upside down, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. The Muslim and the white supremacist terrorists that I met with were incompetent. They couldn't even make good bombs or rocket launchers or even zip guns that worked rather well. They couldn't do any of this stuff. Without the government involvement, without my involvement, and without the involvement of all these agents, they would not be able to do this sort of thing. Because it was, like you said, it's a total made-for-TV, made-for-the news media. Waco was so terrible and so horrible, and I still have nightmares about it, by the way. And the deal is, Waco was so horrible, and most American people don't even realize it. Waco was so horrible that the deal is they were about to do away with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and combine it with the FBI, because it was supposed to be a temporary agency anyway to do away with the gangsters during the roaring 20s. So they were about to do away with that agency. But after Oklahoma, instead of doing away with the agency, they give them a whole bunch more money, a whole bunch more agents. They gave the federal agents something like $400 million, and I think they were able to hire 3 times more agents after Oklahoma than they already had, so they could put agents everywhere. But one of the things that happened in Oklahoma that I think you'll find real interesting, and your listeners, is a guy named Martin Keating, who's the brother of the former governor of Oklahoma. In 1991, he wrote a book called The Final Jihad. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Okay, in this book, a terror network in Oklahoma goes crazy. A key character in the book is named Tom McVeigh. The rest of the terrorist gets arrested on a minor traffic violation by unsuspecting highway patrolman. I mean, he's a master storyteller. But the reason he wrote this book, The Final Jihad, is he knew what was happening, and he thought it was so neat he'd write a book about it. But the mistake he made, he wrote and published the book in 1991. The incident didn't happen until 1995 that he wrote about. But the deal is, a guy named John Sargent with the BBC, well, he's a freelancer that does stuff for the BBC, and he wanted to do a story for the World of Wonder, and he wanted to do a story called The Secret Rulers of the World. He called me up from England and told me that a friend of mine said that I knew more about the Oklahoma bombing and was much more involved than he was. And I thought this was one of my friends I have very few friends, but I thought it was one of my friends pulling a joke on me with an English accent. And I said, sure, buddy, go ahead. You're from England. Okay, go ahead. I said, who's the friend? And he said, Tim Tuttle. And I said, well, how's he doing? He said, well, he's doing amazingly well for a guy that's allegedly going to be executed soon. So about a week later, he come down and talked to me on my doorstep. So it wasn't a joke, And he talked to me. He talked to me for 3 hours. In the video that I finally got cut and so forth, I'm only on the video for 3 minutes. And I couldn't tell him a whole lot of stuff because I was still working undercover for the United States government. But I did talk to the guy against my orders. I talked to the guy for 3 hours. We got thrown out of the TCBY building in Little Rock. We got the word. McVeigh and I went by the florist shop, and allegedly he didn't want to blow up the building because of the florist shop. The reason he didn't blow up the building is because he wasn't ordered to. But anyway, so anyway, we went to these buildings, got thrown out of all the major buildings that were supposed to be attacked in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it was fascinating. He couldn't realize that. He said, this is like Germany, in Nazi Germany, the way the people treated him and me when we went to these places. I mean, a whole bunch of armed people surrounded us, told us to get our cameras and leave the buildings and so forth. And anyway, he did this story, and what we did, we talked for 3 hours, and I hope he still has the footage, because one of the main things we talked about was the upcoming World Trade Center 9/11 attack that was going to happen. And he asked his boss for permission to cover it, but his boss said, well, you got a lot of things to do and so forth. Finish this story and we'll talk about it later and so forth. But this was before the 9/11 attack, and we're talking about it's going to happen and how it's going to happen and how he's going to take the building down before it happened.
Now, you were privy to some information regarding 9/11 prior to 9/11. What did you find out when you were still working with the agency? I think you left the agency after 9/11, correct?
That's correct. I'm no longer with the agency in any capacity. I'm married. I think I've lost count nearly now, but I think it's my seventh wife. And she's about to leave me for talking to people like you. The government tried to make me a deal, all these federal agencies, CIA, FBI, ATF, that if I wouldn't talk to people like you, they would let my son go. But they're not good at keeping their deals. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason I'm talking to you anyway. And another thing, my good friend Kathy Ferguson, I told her to write stories, do tapes, leave stuff everywhere, and they wouldn't kill her. She didn't do that. She got murdered. You see? Her family doesn't want to talk about her murder.
All right, we're going to be back for our final segment with John Peeler in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal. John, 1 hour just doesn't do your story justice. Perhaps I'll have you back on the nightly edition of the Investigative Journal. But to finish up here, you finally decided you couldn't take any more in 2001 after 9/11. Why did you make that decision? Because you know that's a difficult one. You knew they were going to come down hard on you. But what was the final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak?
Okay, this guy, Tony Alamo, long ago, he had written a thing that it was going to happen, this preacher that I was telling you about, and I felt, but if I couldn't bust the preacher, they wanted me to kill the preacher. I mean, you got to put your foot down somewhere. Yes, I have murdered a lot of people. I've lost count. And I've done some really dirty deals and so forth, and I don't have immunity from prosecution. But the deal is, I just got so tired of it, the stuff the children, I was at Bill Buford's office, ATF, and he was showing me after they went through the metal detector, all the deals that they went through at Waco, and he showed me a whole table full of silverware. I mean, it wasn't sterling silver. It was mostly flatware, and some of it was silver-plated. Most of it was just stainless steel. It was all bent, contorted, and burned up, and so forth. And about half the silverware on the table were children and baby training spoons. And they were touting this up of what a great deal they had done and so forth. And before they went down there, they told me how terrible this person was. They were going down there to kill Vernon Wayne Howe and as many of his followers as they could, and they did. But they did such a botched, terrible job and killed some acquaintances and friends of mine that were federal agents too that knew way too much about Clinton. And I know way too much about Clinton and a lot of his dirty deals and so forth. So I figured I would probably be next on the deal. Then they go and get my son and frame him and try to frame me for an alleged murder of a missing person because a psychic with the Little Rock Police Department named Carol Pate says that the person is not really missing. They have been murdered, so they change it from a missing person case to a murder case. They're trying to frame me for murdering Kathy Ferguson, for murdering this missing little drug dealer guy. And they managed to frame my son, who is squeaky clean, he did a cartoon book about me called The Shadow Warrior, about this older guy that goes and does these dirty deals for the United States government that regular agents can't do, that when he finds these people, like there was a guy named Wilbur Hale, World War II veteran. He was a Phineas priest. To be a Phineas priest, you have to murder two people in cold blood they tell you to murder. But this guy, I don't know how he got to be a Phineas priest because he wasn't that competent, but he was making good Sten guns in his garage, but the government didn't want a Sten gun, so I had to help him get the parts, help him manufacture an M16, and then bust him for it. He had a whole house full of rice and poison, manuals on weapons, manuals on all kind of firearms, all kind of destructive devices, tow bags, plastic explosive, all blasting caps. He had enough stuff to where he could have done multiple life in prison charges. He does 3 months in Club Fed, and he's out threatening me again after that. And the deal is he made a deal and rolled over with the government like a lot of them do. See, a lot of the white supremacists I worked, they were incompetent. They wanted money. The federal agents had to get with them and help them do their deals, or they couldn't even burn down a black church, right? So the deal is the federal agents got in their agencies, and then they had them to join up with the Muslim terrorists. And the Muslim terrorists I met with, they were not sitting around reading the Quran, sitting in a mosque. The Muslim terrorists I met with, they wanted me to go out and tell them what the best brand of liquor was and tell them where the house of prostitution was.
And why Hillary shouldn't be elected dog catcher, let alone a senator from New York and possibly a candidate for presidency. John, one of the interesting things, I just found this guy's name. Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. A year ago, I contacted Kelly Duda, and that you spell it D-U-D-A, and maybe you can check him. He's from Arkansas. Now, he's a young filmmaker in his 20s, and he put together one heck of a documentary about the Clinton blood scandal, and names, everything, talking to people in the prison system, talking to the prisoners who were lied to, well, basically how they changed the records and said the blood was good when it was tainted. Now, here's what happens. I tried to get a copy of the film. I can't find it anywhere anymore, and I can't find Kelly Duda.
Yeah.
And no one, I've tried. I mean, I talked to him once. We were going to get together and go on the show about a year ago, and then he just disappeared. I can't get through to him ever. And maybe you can do a little tracking there, but his name is Kelly Duda, D-U-D-A, from Arkansas, and he's a really good kid. And really,
Kevin or Kelly?
Kelly.
Okay, Kelly, okay.
And he had some really damaging information. And you know who I want to get this information to also, and this may sound strange to you, but this is what's happening in our country. We have such a completely cockeyed system of getting this information out that people really don't know who Clinton is. Now, I'm watching the NBA basketball games, which the NBA season started, and occasionally at nights I enjoy watching that. And Charles Barkley, who you know is an ex-basketball player from Alabama and a potential Hall of Famer in the NBA, they ask him who is his favorite politicians, and it comes out up on the screen. First, it's Barack Obama, the black senator from Illinois, and second, Bill Clinton. So here we go. This is the kind of stuff. Send that information to Charles Barkley, somebody out there, about Clinton. One of my listeners.
The Clinton Chronicles, sir. The Clinton Chronicles, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, if you do hear a Kelly Duda, maybe you could do a little checking,
I'll
see if he is okay. But that film has not made the light of day. I don't know what happened to it. I can't get through to him anymore, but it's not surprising. Anytime you cross the Clinton family, something strange happens, right, John?
Yes, sir. Like I said, the Clinton Chronicles I think there are 53 or 54 people that met their maker in an untimely way because they knew too much, or people were afraid they knew too much about the Clinton family. But you know what, strange things happen, especially in the state of Arkansas. It's a strange state. But you know, the Murrah Federal Building, the Clinton whitewater tapes and diaries and all the dirt that they dug up on building Hillary Rodham Clinton, all the dirt was stored in that building in all the vacant rooms. And then now the building is gone, sir. And if you look at a seismograph reading, the bomb outside went off and set off an explosive train and set off the bombs inside the building that were much larger and cratered the building. And the BATF office was in room 911, which I thought was fascinating. 3 weeks before that happened, I wrote a letter to Governor Keating and asked him if he would please stop the upcoming bombing. And
were you on the FBI at that time? Or
I was undercover for the United States government, yes, sir. And I've caught all kind of hell for this. And about a year ago, I was given 3 polygraph tests. We're talking to you and different other people that I've talked to. I've been given polygraph tests off and on 3 different times in the last year. But 3 weeks before the Oklahoma bombing, I wrote letters and told them to please stop it. 3 months before the 911 attack, I wrote letters to Mayor Giuliani, the president, everybody I could think of, and told them to please stop it. And I called hell for both of those things. Because, see, you know, it's against the law to lie to the federal government. And Martha Stewart, she went to prison not for anything she did, but for lying to federal agents about her activities. So if what I'm telling you was a lie, or the things that I've written to the president was a lie, I would be in federal prison, which I'm not right now because I'm talking to you. But the deal is, I'm telling the truth and let the chips fall where they may, and people like you and your listeners can handle the truth. You know, when good men do nothing, that's when evil men prosper. And that's what's happening too often in this country and around the world, sir.
Yeah. Now, we always get into Timothy McVeigh and your association, but somehow it always happens we end up having to start the show again. So let's do this, because I think our listeners would be intrigued by your association with Tim McVeigh and what you think happened to him now. This is a great story. So go ahead, John. We got time now. So let's start it. We'll take a break in 4 minutes and come back and talk about that. But start telling us how you first met Timothy McVeigh. Okay.
Okay, well, we went over that already with John, and I emphasized it again on a different show many times. And John felt that Timothy McVeigh really wasn't killed, put to death in prison, and was given a new identity. Now, McVeigh, he said, was an undercover agent that he worked with and had personal knowledge that the FBI was used him as a patsy for the Oklahoma bombing. As you know, with the story with John, I spent many hours talking to him how the Tony Alamo ministry was framed. And John really made the story clear. He was hired to bring Tony Alamo down and to find any dirt they could, or even plant weapons. And in the end, when he said that Tony Alamo was squeaky clean, they said, well, you got to figure out a way to make him leave the earth. And John refused. And that was one of the reasons why he left the FBI. Ever since then, I had Tony and John on my show. They talked, and John apologized to Tony. And when this raid took place in 2008, Peeler was never called to testify. Well, he was supposed to testify on Tony's behalf, but never was contacted. And I remember doing an interview after that incident, and he said it was very strange. At first I thought I was testifying, then they never let me testify, and he felt that the defense was really working on the side of the prosecution, and that Tony Alamo was illegally put in jail, was basically framed. And his testimony would have made the jury think twice about convicting him, and I think they would have never gotten a conviction if the truth was ever allowed to be brought out in that trial. However, when you read the trial transcripts and you do a deep investigation like I've done into it, you will see that he didn't get a fair trial. And all of his appeals sat on the judge's desk. They never were going to change anything. And the appeal process was a joke as well. And Tony, to this day, sits in jail. And I just received notice that someone was visiting him the other day, and he's doing fine. His spirits are up. And maybe Monday I'll read a message he sent recently from his jail cell. And you can listen to that next week, Monday. But I'm all out of time right now. Have a good weekend. We will see you next week on the Investigative Journal. Have a good evening. Good night.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.